Okay, well, thank you all for tuning in again. This is going to be my third podcast now. Just got off an interview with Wanda Grown at the last one, so I'll be trying to do other interviews in local races so that we can keep an eye on what's happening here in Island County. A couple other things that are going on. I'll start federal, work my way down. A lot to cover. We now have a confirmed presidential race. It's going to be a rematch. Joe Biden has secured all the delegates he needs to get the Democratic nomination for president for a second time. And Donald Trump has received all the delegates he needs to confirm his nomination for the Republican nomination for the third time. So we are going to see a Joe Biden, Donald Trump 2.0. We don't yet know how that race is going to go. Right now, there's a lot of battleground states still. Trump seems to be polling well for now. Polls change. Anything could change between now and November when the actual election happens. But something to keep an eye on. But now we know who our nominees are. So it'll be Joe Biden v. Donald Trump. The Republicans in the House of Representatives of Congress are now facing a really slim majority to the point where it's almost zero. I think it's now standing at 3. A Republican will be stepping down, and I'll have to grab his name again, but he's going to be stepping down, which brings our majority to 3, which basically means we can't pass anything unless we have unanimous consent in the Republican Party. So that's going to be difficult. Tells me we need another election. We either need to add more Republicans or change something because they are really having a hard time. Slim majorities don't work very well. So major areas in the world to cover. We still have problems with Yemen. We have terrorists who are firing at our ships in the hopes of sinking one. They have not succeeded yet, but it's only a matter of time if they continue firing rockets that they hit something. And we need to deal with that. Right now, President Biden has ordered strikes on these rebels in Yemen. Now, keep in mind, these rebels are not the government of Yemen. The government of Yemen is not someone that we are currently engaged in conflict with, but these rebels who are trying to turn Yemen into a caliphate are attacking our ships, trying to disrupt shipping and trade, and they are hoping to kill a few of our sailors, which, if they succeed, I think they're going to not appreciate the response that they're going to get. But for now, we're launching strikes there. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is still going on. One thing I wanted to talk about is there are calls here in this country by people who I think may be misguided, who are calling for a ceasefire. What they don't understand is that to the Palestinians, a ceasefire is not a ceasefire. It means Israel stops shooting so that we can rebuild and shoot again. They have not shown any repentance for the October 7th attack that murdered over 1,000 Jews. They have not agreed that a ceasefire will go both ways. In fact, the president of CARE here in the United States, which is basically a terrorist apologist group, in my opinion, has said that anything the Palestinians do to the Jews is completely legitimate, and we shouldn't punish them in any way for any amount of murder or mayhem or rape that they commit because Israel's occupied territory. Well, we can go back thousands of years with that discussion. I mean, we could say America's occupied territory. Let me tell you about a couple occupations we have had, just to give you some context of how stupid that argument is. After World War II, we occupied Germany and Japan, and we were occupiers. And sometimes the Germans and the Japanese citizens shot at us for occupying their land. And guess what we did? We shot back. And a lot of Germans and Japanese died that way. Everyone has the right to defend themselves. I don't care if you think they're occupying your land. Everyone has a right to defend their civilians. And that is what Israel is doing right now. Now, we can argue about whether or not it's heavy-handed or not. We can't argue that they have a right to defend themselves from attacks like October 7th. And the reason so many civilians are suffering in Palestine is because Hamas is a bunch of cowards. These people make their attack, and then they hide among civilians, and they always have a GoPro ready when tragedy strikes, when Israel is trying to strike at Hamas members. So until the Palestinians agree that Israel has a right to exist, until they agree that Hamas is extreme and they get rid of them, I don't see any legitimate reason for Israel to consider a ceasefire. And I certainly don't see any reason why the United States should use any of its muscle pushing them for a ceasefire. But even if you do think that it's time for a ceasefire with the Israeli Palestinian conflict, I urge you to reconsider wearing these red hand pins that some people have been wearing. I noticed some actors and singers like Billie Eilish and the guy who played the Incredible Hulk on the Avengers were wearing these red hand pins, which supports a ceasefire in Israel. The the origin of that handpin stems from a lynching of Jews in Ramallah in the year 2000. Two Jews were beaten to death for no reason. They were just beaten to death by a mob of Palestinians. And a young man went out the window to show the whole world his bloody handprints, showing that he had the blood of Jews on his hand. Very Nazi-esque. So when you're wearing those red handpins, understand that you're wearing something that supports the lynching of Jews. And you are basically saying, I'm a Nazi, but I don't use that word. And I don't think many of these people are. I just think they're uneducated and they should probably stay out of politics because they have no idea what the hell they're talking about. We need to make sure that we expose hatred wherever we find it, whether it's anti-Semitism, whether it is, racism of any kind. It needs to be exposed. This isn't a country for that. And people who are wearing those red handpins are basically saying, I want to see the slaughter of the Jews again, and I support lynchings. And I don't think that's what they meant to say. So let's be careful what we're doing out there, people. Additionally, anyone who's been chanting from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Well, if you look at Israel, it goes to the river, right? And then the Mediterranean Sea. So if you're calling for Palestine to be free from the river to the sea, you're basically calling for the annihilation of Israel, which is the Holocaust 2.0. So those are the chants that I'm hearing in the United States. And I think it's not because so many people hate Jews. It's because our media is so corrupt and anti-Israeli that they just put out garbage information. And these people are chanting things that are Nazi-esque that I don't think they mean. Some of them do. But the majority of the people who are honestly are tired of seeing innocents die and want to see it stop, I don't think they understand what it is they're chanting. I myself would like to see a ceasefire, a real ceasefire in Israel. And for that to happen, the Israelis and the Palestinians are going to have to get to the table. But in order to come to the table and negotiate, both sides have to agree to one basic premise. You, the Palestinians, have a right to exist. Israel needs to acknowledge that. And the Palestinians need to acknowledge you, the Israelis, have a right to exist. Until we have an acknowledgement of each other's right to exist, negotiation is pointless. And the United States has tried numerous times to try and get something passed, but there are members inside of the Palestinian Authority and Hamas, and there are some in Israel who have no desire to see peace. They want the other side completely wiped out. It's a really complicated situation. We're not going to solve it on this podcast, and I don't think you guys are going to solve it by chanting. I just want you to be aware. When you chant to the river to the sea, you're calling for the extermination of the Jews. When you wear those red hand pins, you are supporting the lynching of innocent Jews. So just be aware of what it is you're doing. It's okay if you want to call for a ceasefire on both sides and you want to see people stop suffering. I also am tired of seeing innocent Palestinians die because Hamas is too cowardly to stand out and fight. And I really want to see it end, but it has to end the right way, where we can be assured that there's not going to be another October 7th attack. Additionally, every single hostage the Hamas terrorists have captured, have we forgotten about them? They need to be released. Every single one. So that's just my soapbox. We've got the Ukraine-Russian war has been going on for 2 years now, and it doesn't seem to have an end in sight. We have spent billions of dollars on a war that just will not end. Russia has a vested interest in getting their neighbor annexed into Russia, and we obviously don't want to see that. We don't, because if Russia continues this expansion, their next expansion will be in a NATO territory. And if they do that to a NATO ally, an attack on one NATO ally, according to the charter that we signed, is an attack on all NATO allies. And then we'll end up seeing ourselves in a conventional war with Russia, which could easily accelerate into a nuclear war, which would end basically the world and civilization as we know it. Nobody wants that. So I am hoping whoever our next president is will put both Vladimir Putin and Zelensky to the table and figure out a solution. The Ukrainians obviously don't want to give up any of their land. Well, if we want peace, some kind of negotiation is likely going to happen. Vladimir Putin's going to have to show something to the Russian people for it's probably 100,000 Russians who have died in this war, which was stupid on his part. I still to this day cannot figure out why Vladimir Putin decided now was the time, or that this was a good idea. But it sure wasn't. So hopefully we'll see peace there. So that covers the hotspots right now in the world, and that covers our federal. Let's go to something more fun. Washington state elections. We currently have, it looks like there are other Democrats running, but it looks like Bob Ferguson is probably the presumptive nominee of the Democrat Party. He's raised a great deal of money. He has a great deal of name recognition. He is very well entrenched in his party. And I think most of the serious candidates have withdrawn. There is a moderate candidate that is running for the Democratic Party that many Republican moderates like, but I think Dave Reichert's probably pulling most of those away, so it's unlikely that a moderate candidate is going to win the Democratic nomination. So I think we're probably facing Bob Ferguson in the Washington state governorship. Here in the Republican Party, we have Semi Byrd, who is running, and we have Dave Reichert. Both have advantages and disadvantages. I don't know which one of them is going to come out on top, but I do know that right now the party is once again fractured, and I'm hopeful that it is not a permanent fracture and that the party will be able to unite under whoever pulls it out. Dave Reichert has a serious advantage when it comes to fundraising and when it comes to major donors. He has brought in a great deal of money, which is very important for a campaign. He has, however, slipped with the local parties. Currently, he's standing, I think, as of today, I think Jefferson County just unanimously endorsed Semi Byrd for governor. That puts Semi Byrd at 16 county parties out of 39 that have endorsed him for governor, where Dave Reichert is sitting at 4. I believe those 4 are Pierce County, Grant County, San Juan County. There is one other. I don't know if it's Whatcom or Kitsap. I'll have to look it up. And Whatcom and Kitsap, if it wasn't you, please don't hate me. I'll look it up. I don't know. There's a 4th county. So it's 16-4 right now. And I think the problem that Dave Reichert has is he is not really engaging with his voter base. I think his strategy is to focus on trying to explain why moderates and some Democrats should come over and vote for him so that we can actually win in Washington state. And that is good strategy for the general. But to get to the general, you have to win the primary. And in order to win the primary, you got to get the Republicans to vote for you over the other guy. And Semi Byrd has done a very good job with his ground game. With limited resources, he has been everywhere. I myself have seen Semi Byrd 5 times in my area. I didn't have to go looking for him. He came here. That is what we need our candidates to be doing. So we would have a perfect candidate if we had Dave Reichert's fundraising and Semi Byrd's ground game. With also Dave Reichert's plan for the general that he's, I think, executing a little early. We've got the Washington State Convention that's coming up. I am an elected delegate in Island County, one of 38. So Island County doesn't have a huge say in what happens in the convention, but it's going to be exciting to be there. And we are going to, one of the things that we're going to do that's different this year is we are going to be endorsing candidates early. We're going to be supporting candidates and hopefully, the candidates that don't win, we're hoping will either step aside or they'll be very serious candidates. And you know, I don't know if this was executed very well because I don't know many people who are going to drop out because the WSRP says, "Oh, we like this guy." It's a little late. That's something that should be done by the chairman and the executive board of the WSRP, in my opinion, my humble opinion that you do not have to listen to. That's something that they should have done very early on. They should have said, okay, this candidate is probably the most likely to win, but we want to find a place for everyone who is running. Like, I think it would be a shame to lose either Semi Bird or Dave Reichert. I think both of them can be great candidates. I know for a fact Dave Reichert's a great candidate when it comes to fundraising, and he's won before in King County. We have so many positions statewide that we don't have a Republican running for. One of them is the insurance commissioner. Nobody's running, which I think is a problem. We don't have anyone running for treasurer, which shocks me. That is the one position I think most people in the world agree a Republican needs to be in, is the treasury. We have no one. I don't believe we have anyone running for Secretary of State. There's another big one that escapes me. We only have one person, Christina Mitchell, who is running for lieutenant governor, which is fine. At least we got somebody. But usually we have a couple of options to choose from. So what I'm seeing is a lack of interest in candidates running, which tells me that they believe that it's a lost cause or they're just burnt out. So I'm here to tell you guys that I am a little concerned right now with the state of the Washington State Republican Party. It is the duty of the Washington State Republican Party to do a few things. One, raise money. They need to be bringing in money. I'm seeing a little bit of a concerning trend when it comes to the WSRP raising money compared to years past. Two, they need to find candidates to run. If we don't have a candidate that's willing to run for an office, if we can't even fill out the state offices, something is broken. We need to be finding and recruiting decent candidates to run. And even Democrats should appreciate that because we deserve to have choices in this state. We deserve to have choices of who it is we want to support. We deserve to look at the current treasurer, determine how he's done, take a look at a potential opponent, and determine if he might do a better job. If we as the Republican Party are not finding candidates to fill these positions to at least challenge, we are failing as a party. And I think that's something that people need to bring up. Now, I love Jim Walsh. I do. So this isn't against him at all. But I wonder if picking someone who is gone when he's in sessions, because he's in the House and he's an amazing representative. Don't get me wrong. But for months on end, he is absent. By law, he has to be. He has to represent his district that he is elected to, and then we have no chairman. And when we have no chairman, we have no one guiding the fundraising. We have no one sitting down and doing the negotiations necessary to get behind candidates early, and we have no one recruiting candidates for these important positions. I've seen here, like in LD10, we currently have 0 people running against Dave Paul. Now, Dave Paul is a Democrat in the 10th district that covers Island County, southern Skagit, and parts of Snohomish, Arlington, Stanwood. Dave Paul's popular. He's well liked in Island County. He's a pretty well entrenched guy, but he's not undefeatable. The fact that the Republican Party has found 0 people to run against this incumbent that is not invincible. This is a battleground, one of the few battlegrounds that we could pick up. 0 people are running. What does that tell you about the state of the Republican Party right now? The local parties are doing what they can, but we need a statewide party that is functioning and active and consistently working to make sure that we have these people lined up to run. We have 2 candidates running against Clyde Shavers. That is Yvonne. My goodness, I can't believe her name escaped me. That's a problem that her name escaped me because, I know she's an active She is currently serving in Arlington on the city council. Her name is Yvonne. Her last name, it'll come to me. And then we have Carrie Kennedy, who is a PCO currently in the Island County Republican Party, a resident of North Woodby, I believe. I don't think she lives in the city limits of Oak Harbor, but she lives pretty close to Oak Harbor. Carrie Kennedy, if I'm wrong, I'm sorry. But she's also been a candidate for Congress before. And those two are going to run in a primary against each other, and then one of them will face Clyde Shavers. 0 people running against Dave Paul. On the positive front for Republicans, Ron Mazzal is doing amazing. He is raising money like a champ. I think he's going to break records. He is also extremely popular. I think he's probably on track to get reelected. I really do. He's also been a phenomenal state representative. I am always very educated when he talks. This guy knows a lot. When he comes back and he talks about things from Olympia, I'm pretty stunned. He really teaches you what's going on, and I appreciate that about him. He doesn't just tell you why he's doing or that he's going to do something. He explains why, but before he explains why, he educates you on the whole situation. So, Ron Mazzal, you're off to a great start. I hope the rest of the Republican Party emulates what you're doing. We need to do a little bit more of what Ron Mazzal is doing. We also, getting back to local, we've got 2 commissioner races. One is with Jill Johnson in the second. Jill Johnson is probably a favorite to win. She is extremely popular, and she always dominates when she runs. Right now, I don't think she has an opponent. Really good sign for her. Because if somebody was even to jump in today, a little late. It's a little bit of a late start. We need to support her. Obviously, Republicans. We need to get her endorsed and give her all the support we can to encourage our luck to continue. That we have an incumbent Republican that does not have opposition. That is exciting news. So it looks like we're still going to have a Republican voice in the Board of County Commissioners come 2024, no matter what happens. District 1, a little bit more of a show. We currently have 4 candidates. I was able to interview Wanda Grown. Steve Myers is also running on the Republican side. I probably have to talk to him soon if his schedule permits. And we have Maria Shimada. I hope I didn't butcher that last name. I think it's Maria Shimada, who is running to challenge the current incumbent, Melanie Bacon. Maria Shimada has raised a great deal of money. She's doing a lot of good things to start. It tells me that she has a good team around her, because I think this is her first political run, and she's doing pretty well. From the outside looking in, her campaign is doing relatively well with fundraising. Wanda Grown is starting to pick up some money. I'm starting to see more donations coming to her. Steve Myers has started out with a decent amount of money to run for commissioner. The real question is going to be who pulls out the primary. Now, understand that all of Island County does not get to vote in the primary. Unfortunately, I'm not quite sure I understand why, but it is what it is, and I'm not going to be able to change it. We have a primary where only District 1, which is just above Coopville, that covers Freeland, Greenbank, Clinton, and Langley. They are the only ones who get to vote. And in elections past, and I don't think it's going to change a whole lot this time around. It may shift a little, it always does, but not a whole lot. It has been close to either 65 to 70% Democrat. Now, that could be a concern, because if Melanie Bacon was to do pretty well and Shimada was to do pretty well, they could potentially be the 2 people on the ticket and end up being the only choices that we have. So we are hopeful that a Republican, whether it be Wanda Grown or Steve Myers, breaks through and can go to the general and either face Melanie Bacon or Shimada. But I will promise you, unless something unbelievable happens. I've been hearing talk of, wouldn't it be great if we have two Republicans in the general? We're not going to have two Republicans in the general, guys. That's just one of those reality checks I have to give you. We are not going to have two Republicans in the general. We might have two Democrats, but we will be blessed if we have one Republican and one Democrat. So it's either going to be Maria Shimada or Melanie Bacon. One of them or both of them is going to be in the general. So it's really important. Republicans, I encourage you to do your research on Steve Myers and Wanda Groen. Make an informed decision, and I'll help make an informed decision. Hopefully I can get Steve Myers on here. And get behind one of the candidates and make sure that they have enough votes to advance. So we have a chance to get a Republican in there, because I think we need somebody who can either help with housing or help with the budget, because we've got a little bit of a problem right now in Island County. So that is pretty much my podcast. Thank you guys so much for watching. I usually try to keep them at 15 minutes to keep you guys watching, but this one is extended to about 26. So I will say thank you so much for watching and have a great day.